Welcome everybody to Rad Pod and Chill. I'm Heidi Kuda. I'm with my friends Jim Stewartson and High Fidelity. We are the hosts of an investigative show about disinformation, and on Thursday nights, we're just some pals getting together to talk about our recent episode and the news and whatnot. And I'm in an unbelievably good mood, and I think it has to do with the fact that we're putting the band back together tonight. Jim was sick.
Well, Jim's
High Five was
still,
sick.
yeah, Jim's still kind of sick. He's a poor guy.
Yeah. He's got the cough from hell, which I had over the holidays. So I feel you, man. But Jim, do you want to just check in and let everybody hear your disembodied voice?
Yeah, yeah, I'm fine. I got the flu like 10 days ago or something like that, and
Yeah.
I feel all right now. It's just I have a lingering gnarly cough is all. So I'm staying off the camera so people don't have to look at me convulse while I'm muted. So
Oh.
I'm gonna try and get some coherent thoughts in here edgewise, but no guarantees.
Oh, I have no doubt that you're going to get some coherency going. I am remembering right now to tweet the live stream. That is why I am stumbling around, and Jim, do the same if you haven't already. I'm actually trying to look at your Twitter timeline, Twitter X, because you reintroduced conniption fit recently, and you reintroduced another word that I have to try to find that made me laugh my ass off. I went back to like middle school back in the day, and I got to find it. You've been on fire, both of you gentlemen. And Jim, why don't you just sort of update us on a couple of things that you think it would be good for our viewers to know that you have been working on? And I will find that entertaining word that you used.
I used an entertaining word.
You
Okay.
did. You did. It was so funny. I hadn't
All
heard it
right.
since
Oh,
middle
good.
school.
I'm
Yeah.
glad every once in a while I get an entertaining word in
Uh-huh.
there.
You did.
I don't know. A lot of very interesting shit is going down. Alex Jones uh, had a very strange night last night
Oh,
where he
yeah.
attempted to sort of both anoint Flynn as Q and absolve him from it at the same time by saying, um, well, basically, you were uh, like Q. Everyone thought you were. So he claims that he told Flynn to just go ahead and take over Q, and that Flynn demurred and said no, he wasn't going to do that. Anyway, all of it was just very, very strange. Uh, Truth mixed with fiction. So Alex Jones was, in fact, friends with the people who started uh, Q. We had James Brower, who was the first guy to write Q drops on InfoWars the day after the calm before the storm video, which is kind of the thing that started Q off, really.
Wow.
It was 3 weeks before, and anyway, so it was just a very sort of bizarre effort. And at the same time he's doing that, Flynn is creating an auto hagiography about himself,
Yeah.
which is all just to burnish his uh, role as kind of Archangel Michael General, QAnon or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and it looks pretty fucking scary. What he's doing, and so he's got this movie coming out in April. Simultaneously, he's got Eric Prince operatives, literally a guy named John Mills that he's paying, that he admits to paying to be in Taiwan to
Hmm.
make up propaganda and shit because they're trying to create some kind of conflict in Taiwan. Now, the thing that's more alarming than Eric Prince and Mike Flynn trying to raise shit in Taiwan is that Mike
Yeah.
Charles would be the guy to
Yeah.
respond to it with the Pacific Army.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So
That ain't
you
good.
have a couple of so they're saying out loud in the next few months there might be some kind of conflict with China in Taiwan, all of which sort of matches up with Flynn's timing for this movie that's coming out in April. Then there is in Michigan, the last event of the Reawaken tour is in June.
Right.
And so, the basic punditry is that that's around when you pick your vice president, right?
Right.
So Flynn's movie appears to be both an audition for vice president, a way to build up his, cult of followers and radicalize them and mobilize them ahead of the summer, which all lines up with his predictions of end times and black swans and all that shit that he's been up to. So it feels like a very kind of steady and obvious and almost too blatant drumbeat to some kind of confrontation with something.
Well, and the thing is, it stopped being quasi opaque some time ago. It's all very blatant, looking at your timeline. Uh, these guys are telling us what they're going to do. So basically, they're doing what they said they were going to do. And you just unpacked a lot. And I'm just going
We
to.
have to believe them. That's the thing. They told us last time too. They said there's going to be a wild protest and everybody should go. And there were all kinds of memes about how they were going to, they were bringing guns. And and guess what? They fucking did it.
Yeah.
And so the fact that we're just going to sit back and wait for whatever the hell it is they're playing this time is the thing that absolutely.
Yeah. So all that stuff is incredibly important, and we will talk more about that. But I did find the word and the phrase that I wanted to put out into the universe. It wasn't snookered, which I did get a chuckle at. It was Mike Johnson saying humana humana. I don't know the last time I heard humana humana, but I literally was like, oh my God, Jim, where did you pull that one out of? I've not thought of.
Did you hear the clip?
No.
He literally says humana humana humana.
No.
He's trying to fucking figure out how to
respond.
And he just goes humana the whole time because he knows he's gonna get slaughtered for it by his own side.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, he's being super extreme, right? He's saying, well, it's God's will, obviously. So, and anyway, so I said humana humana simply because that's what
it just made me laugh so hard. So
that's some old Jackie Gleason shit.
It's so great.
I know, right?
I ain't heard it in a long time. So back to the bones rattling around in Mike Johnson's closet. I actually thought about him last night as I was working on number 2 in my series reviewing the 2016 election attacks. And what I noticed was that the IRA, the influence operation out of St. Petersburg, among the things that they did that a lot of people do not know about was they actually formed a hotline that they published on a Christian Facebook site, which was obviously fake. It was supposed to look like it was an American Christian site. It wasn't, but it was a hotline for anti-masturbation. And the thinking is from the authorities, and our Senate intelligence report informed us on this, that it was designed to actually blackmail Americans. And I was just like, wow, who had a weird app on his phone about that kind of stuff? Mike. And what if he actually called that hotline and was blackmailed? This is very speculative. It's just where my imagination took me. But, you have our Justice Department warning that this could have been a blackmail device. Christian people, I guess, maybe have an issue with that particular subject matter. But it kind of goes to show you how the St. Petersburg operation was, covering all its bases and beyond. And I'm not going to lie, Jim, Hi-Fi knows this. It was really traumatic revisiting all that material, looking at those memes that were made of Hillary, remembering how it was amplified by botnets and the similarities between the memes out of the Trump campaign and the memes out of the St. Petersburg operation not only were stark, but then you remember that people who worked directly for Trump, including his family members like Don Jr., were prolifically retweeting the Russian propaganda, accounts. And the words we have aren't really harsh enough for this. Yes, Hi-Fi.
Well, actually, when I think about Russian memes and using memes to fuck with people's voting, I obviously think of Douglas Mackey. And wouldn't you know it, but I went out and looked, and there's a give, send, go for Douglas Mackey.
Yeah.
I guess that's no real surprise, right? But what's interesting here is this meme defense fund. This is a link right here, and you can send crypto. Wow. Cash, check, or money order. So I followed that, and that goes to this meme defense fund. Here's Tucker Carlson and Glenn Kirshner yelling about Ricky Vaughn, calling it a witch hunt. But then if you go to the donate page, it links to this 501c3 donation page through the American Cause. But if you look into this American Cause, you find out it's run by a guy named Darren Beatty. And Darren Beatty was a Trump White House appointee who got kicked out for his white nationalist views. And he actually popped up today on Tucker Carlson telling lies about the pipe bombs that were planted on January 6th. So you can kind of see this network of operatives and how they all intersperse together.
Well, so
that's just crazy, isn't it?
I want Jim to weigh
crazy.
I want Jim to weigh in on this. Just for those who don't know, part 1 in my series, Digital Gorilla, that explains who Hi-Fi was just talking about. This Douglas Mackey character has been convicted of election interference for 2016 for posting vote at home memes designed to get Hillary Clinton supporters to think that they could vote by text, and thousands of people called this number. Bottom line is that the people who are the worst, most venal Russian propagandists in America at this moment, and really have been doing this work for many years, are all rallying around to make this guy look like a shit poster, some kind of meme guy. That's not what this is. This was election interference. But Jim, what I think is going on is I think the bigger story is that because they are all trying to minimize it, they're trying to obfuscate the fact that Roger Stone posted these same memes about texting from home, and that Don Jr. prolifically retweeted the Russian accounts. Kellyanne Conway retweeted the Russian accounts. And guess who else also quote tweeted the Russian accounts? Donald Trump, Mike Flynn. So I think it's very, very important that we don't look away from 2016. And I'm really excited because I'm working on my third report already. I'm forcing myself to put on what I call like an emotional hazmat suit to go back to these hellscapes, these platforms, which leave enough information for us to see that there was, definitely, I'd like to say coordination, certainly.
Look, it wasn't just a little coordination, right?
All right.
Douglas Mackey was in a DM room with all of the MAGA 3X people coordinating Pizzagate, coordinating the attacks on Hillary Clinton based on Russian hacked emails
Yes.
the entire time.
Yeah.
This one little incident with telling black people they could text vote, that is one meme out of thousands and thousands of memes out
Yeah.
of an entire very, very coordinated operation.
Yep.
The 10 GOP was just one of hundreds
Yep.
of literal Russian accounts run by, in some cases, named Russians in St. Petersburg who sat
Yep.
there all fucking day long in a building
Mm-hmm.
and ran psyops on Hillary Clinton in
Mm-hmm.
conjunction with that entire team, the
Yeah.
entire MAGA 3X team with Jack Posobiec and Mike Flynn. All of them were coordinating a massive psychological operation against Hillary Clinton. It wasn't some little thing. It wasn't some fucking one tweet. It was
No.
an organized operation which successfully destroyed the candidacy of the most qualified person to ever run for president and put a Russian puppet in her place.
Right.
That's what happened, and Douglas Mackey was a big part of it, along with a bunch of people that are still out there doing it right now, including Darren fucking Beatty, by the way, who has been part of this alt-right, neo-Nazi movement for a very long time.
So, Jim, thank you for that. I want to ask you why you think Dinesh D'Souza, Donald Trump Jr., Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, JD Vance, Charlie Kirk are among the groups that are trying to minimize Mackey and the memes. Why do you think they're doing that? Because again, whatever their intention was, it backfired. Because now I'm deep diving. This is my new series.
Because it's a crack. Because it was a crack in the armor. It was tiny, itsy bitsy little crack in the armor. There was one tiny little prosecution against one of these fucking Nazis.
All right.
In the meantime, you got Microchip, and who's a federal informant. God knows what he's doing. But O'Keefe is still out there doing the same fucking shit he's been doing since 2010.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the same people doing the same stuff. Including some of the people who've been coming after us, who now work with Alex Jones and shit.
Yeah.
Alex
Jones's InfoWars also dialed down this story. It's so yeah, that's okay.
Well, Doug Mackey was on InfoWars, if I'm not incorrect.
Right.
This was, these are all friends, right?
Do you think they might be worried? Do you think that they might be worried that Mackey might turn on them? Like, what? Why do you think that they are? Why are they drawing everyone like me, like people like me, investigative reporters like me? Why are they drawing my attention to this? What are they thinking?
They are trying. They're doing what fascists always do, right? They're trying to absolve themselves of any crimes. Their entire project is to attack, is aggressive attack.
Right.
If they lose an inch, they will try and straight back a mile.
Right.
And the Mackey thing is dangerous to them. Not because of Mackey so much, but because of the people that he knows, Microchip, again, Broward, these people who were there at the beginning of these operations.
I would like two things. One, I'd like the Justice Department and the FBI to explain why, if Roger Stone on one of his accounts tweeted out the same vote for home for the Hillary vote by text meme, why Roger Stone has not been prosecuted. That's number one. And number two, something that Hi-Fi pointed out. I would like to know, since we learned from the informant that you just mentioned that they were paying $300 a month for false amplification using botnets to falsely amplify him. That's why Douglas Mackey went from, some guy who was fired in July of 2016 to one of the most influential accounts in that space on Twitter. Who made that software, and what botnets were they using, and was it coming from Russia? Was it the same one that the Russian troll farm was using? It
That
does.
it,
I'd like to know, like, is the
but
Department of Justice
it,
investigating that?
the bot thing is almost entirely fake. I
Okay.
need people to understand this. They fucking trot out this bot story all the time because it sounds good, but it is almost entirely fictional. The people who were running around retweeting all the 10 GOP and all of that shit were humans. They were
Mm-hmm.
people.
Okay.
They had some limited use of bots, but it was really a minor part of the operation. The entire thing was about human beings in DM rooms coordinating messaging. It was MAGA 3X working off a script, working off of signaling from the leaders of the movement about what the messaging was going to be. So it'd be Podesta's emails 27, and this is about Maria Abramovich is a Satanist, right?
Right.
And so they would have a whole. I mean, it was organized. It was not some sort of magical bot thing that these guys came up with. It was a coordinated, organized movement that was fueled by lots and lots of Russian accounts.
Okay.
But those Russian accounts were full of Russians. That was Igor in fucking St. Petersburg. It
Right.
wasn't some magical bot.
Right.
And so a lot of what you hear, out there about, how there's this big bot problem and all of that tends to most of the time be a smokescreen.
I just
You
want to know where in the indictment it talks about this false amplification. I would like to know more about that. But to your point,
came
Jim,
from Russia.
yeah, that's
Came from
exact.
fucking like
That's
a literal building full of Russians, plus
listen.
a literal buildings full of neo-Nazis in America.
Those
That's
who worked at the Lie Factory said that there were 1,000 employees. Out of 1,000 people doing this work, 13 were indicted. And to somebody who actually,
exactly.
so that's number one. The other thing is that, and obviously you guys know that I report this stuff at Betty Dangerous. I'm going to read a quote from Jimmy Carter that comes toward the ending of series number 2. I think a full investigation would show that Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016. He lost the election, and he was put into office because the Russians interfered on his behalf. That is former President Jimmy Carter, a real American president, on June 28th of 2019. That is after the Mueller report, which we know was sabotaged and buried by Barr, after they indicted the Russian military for their hacks, after they indicted the Lie Factory operation. I'm not going to call it a troll farm if I don't have to, because that minimizes the impacts. This was a coordinated Russian intelligence attack on Americans, hacking our minds. And the other thing I want to point out is people are like, oh, but it didn't have an influence. Fuck that. The numbers are staggering. And as Dr. Charles Creel, who makes movies about this subject of disinformation, said, an attempted murderer is still guilty. So it's like, I want to go back to what Carter said. A full investigation would show that Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016. He lost the election and was put into office because the Russians interfered on his behalf. And guess what? The Russians had help. They had this Roger Stone cell of white supremacists. Prove me wrong. I don't think you can.
Look, the fucking election was clearly from Look, the sequence is very simple. Mike Flynn goes to Russia in December of 2015 and sits down with the entire staff of Russia Today, right? They talk about their future relationship together. He a few months later, the Russians hack the DNC at John Podesta. Over the next 9 months, rolling out over the course of the entire campaign are Russian hacked materials that are on a constant, regular drumbeat basis being baked into dangerous, horrific conspiracy theories about one candidate. Those conspiracy theories then metastasized into a set of other conspiracy theories that James Comey used on the advice of Russian asset Charles McGonigal to reopen her emails, which manifestly cost her the election by itself.
Yeah.
So this idea that there's some mystery about this, that we don't know what fucking happened, and oh, maybe it did, maybe it didn't. It's all just that. It's all smokescreen. It's all part of Russia. You doubt yourself every time. Believe your lying eyes. The fucking the evidence is voluminous. It is clear. It is obvious what happened. It was obvious who did it, and it is obvious that those same people are doing it all over again. And that's the real problem here.
That's the point.
That's the real problem. Is the third fucking time in a row we're letting the same group of people do the same shit.
Yeah, it makes you really fucking wonder why they're free to do the same shit. Page 18 of the indictment on the Lie Factory operation. Here is an Instagram account on October 16th of 2016, an account called Woke Blacks that was from St. Petersburg. It was not an American account. It was a Russian account. On Instagram, they wrote, a particular hype and hatred for Trump is misleading the people and forcing blacks to vote for Hillary. It's Russian propaganda. We cannot resort to the lesser of two devils, and we'd surely be better off without voting at all. This is an account from St. Petersburg, and many more like that. Another account on an Instagram account called Blacktivist wrote in 2016, choose peace and vote for Jill Stein. Trust me, it's not a wasted vote. I bring this up because the targeting of the Black community to suppress the vote, encourage people not to vote, is a direct match with what Steve Bannon said the Trump campaign was doing. It's an identical match to what the Stone cell that we've been talking about, this white supremacist cell, was doing. And so, also to your point, Jim, celebrities were retweeting these and reposting these fake accounts. Sadly, people like Sarah Silverman and Trevor Noah retweeted fake accounts from Russia because they played both sides. And I bring this up because it's 2024. We have no protections against this stuff, but we all have our minds, and we all must be aware that if we are being pushed to the left, to the right about whatever issue it is, and the issue, of course, for young people right now happens to be the Middle East, war. If people are pushing you too far, chances are it's not an authentic account. We're seeing the same operations again, and we're seeing the same tactics. And you know why we're seeing it? Because it fucking worked in 2016. And they're doing the same thing, but at a more elevated level. And this Lie Factory farm moved to Africa now. We know that, it's been taken over. Whoever, Prigozhin's dead. Somebody else now has the account. I know that friends of mine are already reporting on that. But the bottom line is that, we don't have protections from this stuff, and that is our failing. You have three people right here who've been screaming from the top of our lungs since we started this show And I don't know what else we can do other than just to keep on reporting.
Yeah,
I would like to make.
go
Hold on.
ahead.
I need to make. Uh, I need to make everyone aware of this because this really kind of bugs me. This kind of goes back. We were talking about Infowars and Alex Jones, and Alex Jones has been bragging that he's been making hundreds of thousands of dollars from this video game. And it's a little small to read, but this under this recommended, it says, "Now this is a game worth buying if you love the God and Emperor Donald Trump, Trump Pence 16." Like, so this has been around a minute, and Alex Jones is making money off of that. Meanwhile, he owes, uh, the plaintiffs in the Sandy Hook case. What? How much does he owe now? A billion something? I
$1.5
forget.
billion.
It's billion and a half. Wow. But Steam is letting him make money online. So yeah.
Unfortunately, you're still allowed to make money, I guess, but it is absolutely a travesty that that motherfucker is still allowed to um, go out there and do what he does and intentionally try and I mean, Alex Jones is simply a Russian propagandist. He's, Blavatsky or any one of these, old. You think about these old propagandists who came and created, you know, um, just a vast empire of falsehoods and hatred. Um, it's the same thing. The dude has been doing this for 25 years now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he's good at it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he's uh, you know in his horrible way accomplished at what he does, and it's fucking horrendous. That not only is he still doing it and still making money, but the Sandy Hook people, to my knowledge, haven't gotten anything from this guy.
Yeah. Well,
Nothing.
I mean, again, he was on the top rated Russian propaganda show, Solofiev show. I imagine it's the top rated show for 45 minutes spewing Russian talking points. And at what point do the people of America stand up and say that, this just cannot continue? We cannot continue to have um, people with these gigantic platforms uh, in bed with a war criminal, because I mean that's basically what's happening. And
Totally what's happening. Yeah, um, the problem is that in my opinion, the problem is that the government is afraid of calling Vladimir Putin the enemy.
yeah, right,
They're afraid of a war,
yeah,
a real hot war with Putin.
yeah,
The problem is that
we're in one.
The
Yeah,
Cold War that has been, they've been psychologically trying to subvert the United States for decades now, right?
yeah, right,
All through the Cold War, obviously. Um, but Putin just, over the last certainly 8 years since Flynn got back from Moscow, it has been full scale, full spectrum, psychological, hybrid, irregular war. There are lots of terms for it. But it is irregular warfare, and I think this is important. It's actual U.S. doctrine. Mike Flynn said that he was waging irregular war. Irregular war is the violent struggle between non-state and state actors for influence and power in a society. That's what a regular war is. That's what Mike Flynn said he was waging on American citizens in 2016. And he's still doing it now. And the fact that our government um, won't go after him, I believe, is more a function of the fact that they are afraid of a real conflict with Vladimir Putin um, than they should be. I think they need to stand the fuck up and punch Vladimir Putin in his fucking nose.
Well, I
Um,
mean, our
it,
military
it's
obviously can
part of,
crush
like,
them.
yeah, it's not about right? Because they're worried about nuclear weapons. They're worried about his chemical weapons. They're worried about his biological weapons. I mean, he's a crazy motherfucker who has lots and lots of very, very bad shit that he can point at us. But this sort of, pretend he doesn't exist and
It's
he's
not
not
working.
doing what he's doing is failing. It is failing in the most catastrophic possible way right now, which is that the U.S. society is crumbling under
Yeah.
the influence of all this psychological warfare,
Hmm.
and we're still holding on to this hope that somehow we're gonna, I don't know, stop stop him some other way, I guess.
Right.
But in the meantime, there's nothing slowing down about what he's doing to not just America, but Europe as well.
Hi-Fi, can you pull up Jim's story that came out? It was like 2 posts ago on Mind War about how if this were a toxin, if this were a chemical weapon, we would be dealing with it. But since it's psychological warfare, we're not dealing with it because that's really the crux of it. We're not dealing with it because they don't have to. No one's forcing them to, and it's invisible. But listen, Putin did the same thing to his own people as soon as he got in power. His own people in the late 90s in Russia were enjoying the veneer of freedom, the possibilities of democracy. Putin put his attack dogs online. The state went online and they pushed everybody toward the right. It was so successful. You got a bunch of mindfuck people now, and they're doing the same to America. They refined their act on their own people and then worked their way through various other countries. And here they are in America, and we're not doing anything. And Jim, I think you're right. I think you explained why there's this lack of courage to stand up and say we're a target nation of this, and we're going to help you. But there are many ways that you can start helping the American people without having to declare war. And the other thing is, to declare that war, you'd have to go back to 2016, which is why I'm going back to 2016, because
Yeah.
we've not admitted the truth about what
Well, that is
happened
the whole
there.
problem. That is the whole problem, is that it's the black mold problem in your house, right? Oh no, there's a little bit of mold there, and you start scraping away at it, and all of a sudden you realize, holy shit, the fucking head of the commanding general of the U.S. Army, with 100,000 troops under his command, who would
Yeah,
respond to conflict with China,
yeah,
is a fucking traitor
yeah,
who
yeah.
visibly, openly traitored on
On January 6th.
January 6th, who was
Yeah,
shoved into that position specifically so he could do so. And our military is so feckless and stupid that they listen to the inspector general, I guess. Anyway, so they're in a pickle, and I'm
yeah,
sorry they're in such a pickle, but they need to fucking put their big boy pants on and realize the problem that they have. The
yeah,
problem is not just this retired crazy motherfucker who's out here. It's his brother who he's literally trying to send a war to.
yeah,
He's trying to create a war so his brother can fight it. Like, absorb this. That's what he is actively doing all the fucking time. And the it is a national security embarrassment, not to mention an emergency, that we just refuse to do anything about any of this stuff because we're, I guess, too afraid or too embarrassed, or God knows it's gonna shake the boat.
Yeah,
But
well,
and
truth and reconciliation now, bro. Truth and reconciliation now. We know there are many things that we could be doing based on what Sweden does and Finland does and Denmark does. There's many things that we could be doing to help citizens and bring people back to their true selves. And we will keep on applying that pressure. And Hi-Fi, I know you wanted to weigh in. Do you want to start showing some clips from episode 80? We had an incredible researcher on, Livia Ponzio. She does a lot of consulting work for films. She also has her
Hold on
own
a second.
podcast.
Hold on a
Yes, yes,
second,
yes,
Heidi.
Hi-Fi. Yes, 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 yes,
Hold
yes.
on. Because one thing we haven't mentioned yet, and you pointed it out earlier, and I'm going to bring it up right now, is we don't talk about this enough, right? We have former military working for people who are not exactly our allies.
Yeah, that's a problem.
That's a real problem.
Yeah, Bob Dole, worked for Deripaska, and we had, various heads of FBI and CIA working for, Russian oligarchs. And I'm trying to pull up a great quote from our friend Wes Clark Jr., who weighed in on that recently when I was having a chat with him, because it is absolutely insane that it's something that is, he told me over the phone, it's absolutely insane that we allow hostile dictatorships direct access to our citizens. Obviously insane. And then he said, and that's the whole point of revisiting 2016. And then he said, it's insane that we allow retired civil servants to work for hostile nations. Yeah, that's insane. Retired military. Mike Flynn was working for Turkey at the same time he was working for Trump. How does that even work? How does that even work? That's
literally working for Turkey, and
I mean it literally.
Yeah, no, I know you do. I know, but I mean, he got $600,000 specifically from a group named Innovo, that was run by Ekrem Alptekin, who is connected directly to both Erdogan and the Russian government.
Yeah. So thanks for bringing that up, Hi-Fi, because that is one of our vulnerabilities, and one of the reasons you want to continue to push for democracy is so we can have reforms and we can reevaluate some of this shit. Capitalism isn't the answer to everything, kids. I'm sure the kids know it.
Well, I think Livia says it best. I think Livia says it best when she says we're at the warfare stage.
Since the KGB years, Russia has always considered, maybe even earlier, always considered the information landscape as a warfare landscape, and this is the way they've been approaching it without any solution of continuity, right? So, how do they approach this kind of warfare that we are completely oblivious of? Not anymore after the pandemic, but we are still pretty much behind in having the full consciousness of this being a warfare, right? So how do they approach it? They approach it militarily, which means that they work in stages. It's organized in stages, right? So for the next stage of the operation to be successful, you have to erase the trace of what went wrong in the stage that preceded it, right? You bring to an end a military operation in info warfare, and then that chapter is closed, and you have to go on and implement on what you have achieved in the previous stage. So also QAnon has gone through stages, and this is what I see pretty much also like right now with the Dugin, with all these events organized in Italy. they are, and we are entering one of the first stages of the 2024 warfare for European and USA elections.
Well, there you go.
Livia's smart.
She's so brilliant. She's so brilliant. For those who didn't watch the,
Oh yeah, I just
she's,
need to listen to Livia and feel sane.
I know, I love her. And, you know, thank you, Monique, for introducing us. They're podcast partners in an Italian show called WTF. Livia, for those who didn't watch the episode, she infiltrated a QAnon group back in 2018, and um, she saw how people were being manipulated and what triggers they were using, and knew some of the people, and knew some of the people to be good people who had suffered trauma, maybe have some bit of paranoia. But then she saw it become much more militarized. And what one thing I think it's really important, because we often, I don't think we ever should have really divided the kinetic from the non-kinetic warfare in the connected worlds we live in. But she said something so amazing a couple days ago. She told me that, like in kinetic warfare, in non kinetic warfare, there is war profiteering. In the infosphere, you will find former professionals engaging in the trade of disinformation. She said sometimes for money, sometimes it's a revenge for failed careers, but mostly it just boils down to war profiteering. And I've been thinking about that a lot. You know, we learned from Jason Stanley that big business backs fascism. They think it's going to be better for maybe, you know, taxes and regs, but fascism comes for everyone. So if somebody who once was a professional and they are war profiteering, and they think it's going to turn out well, you know, it generally doesn't.
Yeah, I know some war profiteers who are you know, who put out some disinformation recently, um, and yeah, the the level of sort of deception that's going on, that has been going on out there for a very long time,
Yeah.
by people who claim, and this is the part that, you know, that makes it really difficult, is people who claim to be professionals, right?
Yeah.
Write books and go on podcasts and do this
Yeah.
shit, and it takes somebody who really understands the subject to get that they're lying, that
Yeah.
they're intentionally trying to diminish or distract, or whatever their particular tactic is. Um, but unfortunately, you know, it's just super common. And in times of heavy duty conflict like we're in right now,
Yeah.
it gets very thick. And on a
Yeah.
place like X or Twitter, or whatever the fuck you want to call it,
Yeah.
which is literally now designed to be a disinformation, you know, like reality warp.
Right.
Um,
It's a
you
psyop,
really have
and
to
we've
watch
discussed this.
every single thing that you do and follow, and consider the reasons that this message is being delivered to you, and really look into the reasons for it before you sort of blithely, you know, amplify it.
Yeah.
It's hard, and it's getting harder.
It's
I
getting
mean,
more difficult. Yeah.
yeah,
But I feel kind of bad for people that were real professionals who then took this type of work, because we'll get through it at some point. And imagine putting this on your resume, like stalked people on Twitter for years, you know? I mean, unless you're working for a Russian lie factory, I just don't see how that would be a good move. This is
no.
not,
See, it's creative writing or journalism or podcasting or some
no, no,
fucking,
it's war
you know,
profiteering. And
No,
I
I know.
love, yeah, I know, I love Livia. You know, she studies media and fascism. She studies, you know, she studied media and, you know, Germany in the 30s and 40s, and obviously Italy. And so she understands the bigger picture here. But I do want to point out that uh, New York Post called Elon Musk's meme today about the president of Argentina a racy meme. And like the media is so the villain in all of this. It's like they completely miss the fascism, and I'm disgusted by it still. It's been 8 years, and I'm still disgusted by it. Let's go back to where it's saying hi-fi. Can we show more, Livia?
Looking at this researching this kind of topics already for quite a few years now, what I notice is that it's rhyming too well to believe that the people running those operations, like QAnon, but there are many others, and in the far right, they are not aware of the of how the propaganda during the fascist and Nazi year was structured, because they are like Heidi was saying, they have certain let's say archetypes, stories that archetypes target that they start working on. One is the women, so the women as witches. So the women are either the ancillary beings in the greater project of this male dominated authoritarian world, or if they don't want to take that position, they immediately become witches. They are attacked as witches. They are very much pushed on the side of society. So the moment that you see in a free society women being pushed on the side, it's a pretty good indication to me that authoritarian forces are at work.
There you go.
I mean, do you know how many Hillary as witch memes I had to look at as I was doing those first two reports? The satanic witch shit. And it's like, you know, she said something really interesting when I had her on the Betty Dangerous Speakeasy. She said, with children, there's like two archetypes. There's those you always have to rescue the children, rescue the children. And she goes, and then there's the children that they're willing to sacrifice. And it's like, you know, what are we seeing? We're seeing people being manipulated to save the quote unquote children. And yet these same people do not have any concerns for the children being trafficked out of Ukraine by the war criminal Putin. And it's like,
The children are just a carrier wave for Trump,
yeah,
right? They don't. None of these fucking people care about children whatsoever. I think what you were talking about earlier, Heidi, wrote a thread that asked the question. You know, imagine somebody, a foreign country, imported chemical weapons that were colorless and odorless and caused brain damage to anything that they came in contact with. And imagine a third of the country was clearly affected by it.
yeah,
Imagine what the freak out would be, right? But you replace chemical with psychological, and it's fucking invisible. It doesn't matter. It's just politics. It's just some weird internet thing. Oh, yeah, the fact that my sister thinks I'm a fucking pedophile, right? Or my best friend suddenly, wants to have nothing to do with me and, threatened me with a gun the other day, right?
mhm,
Like this isn't. it is, we are beyond the point, where it's rhetoric at this
Yeah. Well,
stage,
I mean, every day there's
it's not
yeah.
when it's the I'll land my plane when we're past rhetoric to the point of mobilization.
Yeah.
I think if there's a single kind of word that I need people to get their heads around about what 2024 is looking like, it looks like mobilization.
Yeah.
The reason why Mike Flynn now has America's Future going to swing states with his Pizzagate tour, right?
Yeah.
To radicalize, white nationalists in swing states, is for a reason. Is because he's spreading this poison, this odorless fucking chemical weapon that he's infecting people with, because he is trying to undermine the societal fabric of the country and ultimately the government.
I just want to say something to that before you jump in, Hi-Fi. 2014, guess who else was going to swing states? Russian spies who were gathering the narrative and in contact with someone in Texas on how swing states could be targeted and with what narratives. So, a little too close to home right there. Hi-Fi.
So we're talking about narratives, right? And we know the Save the Children narrative is out there, and we know one of the traumatic instruments that's been useful to mainstream this stuff is that Sound of Freedom movie, and that's about Tim Ballard. Except 3 days ago, Tim Ballard had more criminal charges filed, and his assistants going after him. And yet the movie is still showing on Amazon Prime for some unknown reason. So I guess mainstreaming traumatic propaganda is cool, I guess.
Well, it's what's
profitable.
But it's what's expected. It's like this is war on our country, on our minds. So
yeah, I mean, but we shouldn't expect it at the fucking AMC, right?
Yeah, true.
Slurpee. I refuse to accept that should be an acceptable.
It's
situation.
not acceptable. It's predictable. But I'm very great.
I wanted to bring up one thing because Jay brought it up. There was just speaking of mobilization and how this is all working, there was a guy in north of Fort Bragg, which were a lot of bad shit for some reason seems to go down right around the headquarters of U.S. Army PSYOP. Anyway, this former U.S. Army captain was out on his front and started screaming about all the elites in the colleges in Harvard and MIT, and the same colleges that Jim Jordan and Elise Stefanik were smearing, and he was screaming at the top of his lungs, and then two ladies walked by and he shot them both dead while he was screaming about all the woke colleges, and and shot his dog for some fucking reason, and so that dude's in prison, and no one's gonna hear about it.
Yeah, no one's gonna hear about it. Well,
but in the meantime, this dude, clearly got a heavy dose of this fucking odorless, colorless, chemical, psychological weapon.
Yeah.
And it broke him, and he went on a murder spree.
Broke his brain.
And who knows? Maybe he was mentally ill before. It doesn't fucking matter, because the impetus, the straw that broke the camel's back, was clearly propaganda.
And as we know from our friend Brent Allpress, those who are in the military and in churches who have suffered trauma, PTSD, grief, their brains are targeted. So this gentleman may actually have had extra heavy doses through the targeting of the data that has been regurgitated back at him and weaponized against him. So I'm very sorry to hear it. And we ask all the time, and Hi-Fi and I were talking about it today, like how many people is enough? When do we get to the point where it's enough? And I think we just have to continue to apply pressure and continue to think of inventive ways where we can actually get our leaders to address the poisons that are being delivered to Americans and weakening our country and weakening the fabrics of our society every single minute of every day at this point. I would love very much if we had one or two more things from Livia, because that interview was so amazing.
Relentlessly challenge their narratives and their structures, but at the same time, we don't have to play their game. I think it's quite important. And not playing the game means also don't get lost in the sense of endless outrage that those kind of like those kind of like stunts, I don't know how to call them, disinformation stunts, are put in our, social and legacy media. It's happening in America every day. It's happening in Euros as well, less frequently. If we want to win this, we don't have to play by their rules, and we have to realize that truth is a very rare currency going towards, like sharp truths are a very rare currency going on social media and legacy media going towards the 2024 election. We have to be smart, we have to be sharp, and hopefully, because we are more than they are, they seem to be a lot because they shout really loud, but we are more people. We are like a larger crowd of people. Hopefully we will have it. We will win this incredible battle that I don't see anything. I haven't seen anything similar. I even thought it possible when I was studying the Nazi propaganda to ever come back in reality. But we are at that point. We have to meet the moment, and I'm sure that we will be able to meet the moment if we keep up the good work and we make the rules of the game and not follow their rules of the game.
Yeah. And she also said,
I got nothing better than that.
I know. She also said that they're scared of us too. They wouldn't be spending all this money if they weren't scared of us. Those of us who are willing to stick our necks out and tell people what's going on.
I would say let's lose less time into feeling outraged and spend more time into creating this common ground for us to work on. They are afraid of us. They wouldn't invest this much money if they wouldn't be afraid.
Of course. That's it. That's it, Livia. Livia, you go, girl. Oh my gosh. I guess that's our show. Anything else, gentlemen?
Actually, I want to end on something here because I think it's important. And I hope the Lincoln Project doesn't mind that I borrow this, but I left their name in there because, wow.
And on the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a man to test the will and goodness of a free people. So God made a dictator. God said, I need a man who failed in everything but theft and broken promises to live in a golden palace and convince the poor he serves their needs. So God made a dictator. God said, I need a wicked man to lead the common folk with hatred and fear. So God made a dictator. God said, I need a corrupt man who is above the law and immune from justice. So God made a dictator. God said, I need a man who will use violence to seize power. So God made a dictator. God said, I need a man whose followers will call black white, call evil good, and call criminals hostages. So God made a dictator. God said, I need his political party to obey without question, and the press fear his wrath. So God made a dictator. God said, I need a cruel man who uses his power and position to punish and harm his opposition. So God made a dictator. God said, I need a man who breaks the faith of even his most godly followers and leads them to idolatry. Place him above me. So God made a dictator. And then God said, I sent this man to test you, and until you cast him down, you have failed. So God made a dictator.